What's up, SC Nation? Welcome back to another video. We've all heard people say the following sentences. There isn't enough time in the day. We're too busy to get everything we want done. And that goes for within work hours and also outside of work hours. Cooking, cleaning, the things that we actually do as part of life. Many people assume that that's just the way it is, and in some rare cases it could be someone's just like a Elon Musk type person where they work 95 hours a week, or Bill Gates where they do a lot of things, but even them, they get a lot of stuff done during the day. So is it actually the case, or is it the fact that we don't put some thought into it to see how we're using our time to actually get things done? And this brings me to the concept of budgeting time. We all, or at least many people, have heard of the fact that we should be financially budgeting whatever income we get. We get some money, we put it into different buckets, food, groceries, mortgage, whatever, and we spend that money. And if you're not familiar with that, maybe you should get familiar with it, because it is very useful. Now, the similarities between budgeting for money and budgeting for time are endless. But no one talks about budgeting time, and that is what we're going to talk about today. So the question is, why is budgeting important? Well, let's think about it. If you're budgeting financially, and you're putting money in envelopes or whatever system that you're using, if you go over budget in one of the categories, let's say you overspend on food, you went out to eat too much, so you overspent on food, you can take money out of another envelope or bucket and put it into that envelope and compensate that way, or you can simply go into debt, which is always a bad idea in my humble opinion. Don't do that, but it is an option for you. When you're budgeting for time, there is no concept of going into debt with time. There is 24 hours a day. You can't go over 24 hours, and if you take like money, time budget out of some one bucket, you're gonna have to make it up from another bucket, whether it affects your health, your family relationships. It will affect something, which is why I wanted to talk about budgeting for time, and I wanted to provide 5 tips to budgeting for time. And we'll start off with tip number 1: time boxing. I just said time boxing. Time boxing or time blocking, and these are concepts used by many different people. Gary Keller uses it quite a bit. Gary Keller of Keller Williams Realty, he's the head honcho. He uses time blocking a lot, and he talks about it in his book, The One Thing. They also have a website called The One Thing, where all they talk about is time blocking for the most important parts of your life. Elon Musk uses it. Many people. Elon Musk uses something called time boxing, which is somewhat similar. It's just a different terminology. So whatever you want to call it, is the fact of you're figuring out what you want to do during the day and setting time aside to do it. Now, some people like me like to put in my calendar exactly what I'm going to be doing during the day, and other people will just write it on a whiteboard or on a piece of paper of, like, I am going to be doing cooking, cleaning, working on this, working on that, and they say half hour to an hour. They set times. They don't actually say when they're going to be doing it. They're just saying how much time it will take, and that way they can measure it. Whichever concept you want to use, whichever methodology you want to use, it's good to know what we're going to do during the day, just so I have an idea of, do you actually have time to do everything during the day? And you might need to be a little bit more realistic or pessimistic in terms of how long each item would take. For example, I put in my calendar my drive to customer sites. And without traffic, it takes me 25 minutes. With traffic, it may take me 45 minutes to an hour. During traffic, I'd always put an hour. Even if I make it to my office or to the customer site in 45 minutes, I make it early, great, I have like a few minutes break. And I know many people would not want to include their drive time into their office. It's like a fixed cost. You're going to drive to the office on a daily basis. But as ease, when we're scheduling meetings, I've been in situations where my account manager schedules a meeting from 2 to 3 and then schedules another meeting from 3 to 4 in 2 different locations. So it doesn't make sense. You will have to drive from one place to another. It's best to block drive time within your calendar. And the reason I like to put it in my calendar is that way my salesperson can see that it is blocked, and hopefully they will not double book me, but sometimes they do. Now, I like to equate time boxing to budgeting, where you're taking money out of your bank account, putting it in different envelopes, and assigning each money for a different thing. Another option would be to time track. So you're not taking money out of your bank account and you're splitting it, but you're tracking exactly what you're spending your money on. And some people like to do that. And initially, it's a good way to figure out how much time you're spending doing each different activity. So if you're preparing for a demo, you know that you usually spend 2 to 3 hours on average for a demo. So if you want to block that time, you could do that. You could track your time for driving. And there are different apps that can help you use it. The best app that I've used for that, I don't do it that much, but when I time track, I usually use an Excel spreadsheet or a Google spreadsheet and just track it. There are other software that you can use, like Toggle.com. I'll leave a link in the description below. But you can manually track your time or automatically track your time, where you can input what you're doing and just hit enter, and it will track for how long you've been doing that. And you can always do time blocking and time tracking at the same time. You can block the amount of time that you want for every different action, and you can also track your time to make sure that you didn't go over, or if you are unrealistic in your estimation of how much time you're going to spend on each action. And when it comes to time blocking, and time tracking, I always get this question where, all right, let's say you have set time aside to work on a demo, and then you get an urgent call from a customer. Do you take that call, or do you not take it because that is the time you set aside for working on the demo? Well, the answer is to that, well, it depends. You're going to have to figure out which is more important. If you're working on a demo that's out for, like, you won't do the demo in 2 weeks, and then you have an urgent issue with a customer today, you're going to have to figure out which one's more important for you. And if you can't figure that out, then talk to your salesperson and he will figure it out for you. Just because you're blocking time on your calendar doesn't mean you're rigid and you're fixed to that. And you can always set aside time for reactive time. So I'm a hybrid sales engineer. I do both pre-sales, sales, and, well, I guess that's 3 things: sales, pre-sales, and post-sales. And I like to focus on the sales part because that generates the most amount of money, but the post-sales part is still very important. I still have to support my customers to make sure that they're happy so they continue buying. So I set time aside in my calendar for reactive time. So if a customer calls me at, let's say, 10 o'clock in the morning, I can tell them, hey, can I jump on a call WebEx with you at 1 o'clock in the afternoon? If it's an urgent issue and they want something right now, then I can just move my stuff around on my calendar, and instead of having the reactive time in the afternoon, I can have it in the morning. If I need more reactive time than I've actually assigned, then I know for next time I need to put in more reactive time, or put in low priority items during the expected reactive time, just in case nothing happens and I don't have to be reactive, I can be proactive. So there is that. Tip number 3 is prioritize, and we've already briefly touched on that. When you're in a time block working on something and you get an urgent call, you're going to have to figure out what's more important, hence prioritize. But even before then, how do you decide what to do during the day? What's the most important thing for you? That's the priority. And generally speaking, that's what you need to put first thing in the morning, just because it has the least chance of being interrupted while you're working. So you have it in the morning, and that's the most important thing. You've prioritized your actions. And again, if you have 2 demos that you need to work on, which one do you put in your time block to work on? It depends on the priority. Many people go through the day just being reactive, and whoever's email comes in first, they respond to that. But that's not necessarily the best way to do it. The most important email should be answered first. Something that's going to generate revenue in terms of when we're sales engineers. If a customer is waiting for an answer to put in a PO to make sure that I can use that product, and put in a PO, then you best be working on that first, especially if it's a big PO. You better be working on that first than answering a customer who may not buy anything at this point in time. They're just asking questions for future budget or something like that. So prioritize according to your company's needs. And tip number 4 is protect what matters. Some things matter more than others. If you're working on an important demo, you have to protect that time. You can't say yes to a salesperson trying to book you on a very unimportant meeting at the same time. Not all meetings are created equal. You have to protect your time. If I didn't have a family, I wouldn't really care how long I work, but I need to protect my time, and I try not to work after work hours unless I absolutely have to. I'm protecting my time, which means I need to protect my time during the day, and I can't have time creep or time slippage during the day. I don't want to waste precious minutes doing something unimportant because a customer just had a question. If it's important, again, prioritize, but if it's not important, protect the time that you have set aside to do a certain task. And the last tip of the day, which is number 5, is delegate. Delegating doesn't mean you're just letting go of the work and having somebody else do it for you. This means that you're requesting help. It could be someone cooking, someone cleaning. Like if you have a service that cooks for your family, or a cleaning service that comes in and cleans the house, these are delegations that you're doing. And if you're at work and you're working, let's say I'm working on a support ticket, I can spend 3 hours working on that support ticket, or I can spend 5 minutes opening a ticket and get somebody from support to come and do the job better, because that's what they do all day. First off, you're helping the customer because you're getting an expert to come and work on a problem for you. You're not washing your hands of it. You keep following up. You're making sure that there is progress on the ticket that you've opened. It's not dumping your work on somebody else. It's getting an expert to come and do to help the customer as fast as possible. A lot of sales engineers are a little bit of control freaks where they like to do everything themselves. And if you have time to do that, do that. That's fine. But also, in my humble opinion, it might be a little bit selfish to think that you can solve a problem better than a support engineer can, because that's what they do on a day-to-day basis, whereas you are a generalist sales engineer working on a bunch of different things. Also, if there's a demo that you need to do on a product that you're not very familiar with and there is an expert somewhere, you could recruit them, whether to come and help you prepare for the demo or to come and do the demo themselves. Especially if you're a generalist sales engineer and they're a specialist sales engineer, it is part of their job to do that demo, and they can probably do it better than you. It doesn't mean you're dumping your work again. It's not like you're letting go of something and just handing off your work to somebody else. You're still managing that, you still know the customer, you're still building that relationship, but you're spending your time more efficiently on things that you can have more of a positive impact. And delegation is not a bad thing. If you want to change the word delegation to leverage, if that makes you feel happier, then by all means do that. Leverage other people so that you can actually do what you're best at. So that's it for today. If you find this information useful, or if you have your own way or your own tip to budget time, leave it in the comments below, and I'd love to hear from you. I will see you guys next time.